10th of April 2025. It is just bang on 9 o'clock. Councillor Connaught, good to see you. We still have an apology, I guess, waiting for Councillor Golightly, so we haven't heard from her. She's on her way? Okay. We have no apologies at this present moment. No, we have no apologies at this present moment. What we'll do is we'll start out with a karakia or prayer. Councillor Ruka, do you feel like opening up today, please?
Of course. Thank you, Worship. Meno tātou. Uru ki te rā, wera ki te rā, ko te ataka hāpara, ko te ataka pākaru, ko te ataka tū. Rere mai te ihihi, rere mai te wana, rere mai tamanui o roto, rere mai tamanui o waho, rere mai tamanui te rā, tītea te kapo kia hihiri, tītea te whatu kia ārea, tītea te kiri kia mahana, mahana te are ki o roto, mahana te are ki o waho, whano, hara mai te mahana, haumi e, hui e, tae ki e. Kia ora.
Thank you, Councillor Ruka. Appreciate that and appreciate the putting blessing on this morning. Just for those to understand, this morning we also had the blessing of Manaia House for the new mental health facilities in Whangarei. So that was done at 5 o'clock this morning. Thank you, Councillor Cooper. As we're going through the meeting, if there's any declarations of interest, please make them known. As I said before, we have no apologies at this present moment. The meeting is being live streamed, and we again just remind our members of the public, which is one at the present moment, good to see you here, that if you are an improvement of something, to use the sign language of rather than clapping, because it does affect the sound through to our live streamed people. We have two agenda items on our agenda this morning, the Morningside flood relief and maintenance renewal contracts. Councillor Reid, I believe you would like to move that. Councillor Connaught, was that a phone? Okay. Yeah, okay. Councillor Reid, this is on page 3, which is the Morningside Relief, 4.1. Would you like to read that, please?
Yes, Your Worship. Thank you very much. Recommendations that the Council, 1, approves award of separable portions 2, 3 and 4 of the Morningside Flood Relief, thereby increasing the value of contract 24052 held by United Civil Contractors from 2.676.915 and 89 cents to $5,346,366. 2, approves the reallocation of stormwater renewals capital budget to level of service capital budget to a maximum of $3.7 million.
Thank you, Councillor Reid. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Peters is seconding that. She's very quick on the hand there, Councillor Peters. Councillor Reid, would you like to speak to that?
Yes, Your Worship, just briefly, if I could. This package is basically the next step in flood relief for Morningside in particular, but for the town in general. This area is plagued by copping most of the rain as it disappears through town. For Council, this is a leap forward in being proactive and taking the potential and shifting the seriousness of the flooding in that area, which we know a number of us have waded around through that place when it's been in flood, and hopefully this will reduce the severity of future events by taking the catchment of Morningside and directing it straight into Limeburners Creek rather than through our overland paths as it happens at present. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Peters, would you like to?
I think this project shows how proactive this council is becoming on climate issues. This is an intermediate step, like it's something that is not a long-term fix in terms of climate change, but it is an indication that we can actually respond to it. and I look forward to the plans that we're doing to slowly make the centre of city resilient against rising waters. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Peters. Councillor Jovich.
Just a question, the separable portions that you refer to in terms of 2, 3 and 4, is it the same as phase 1 and 2? Can you clarify that?
So we'll go through to Andrew. Are you able to explain that or make that clearer?
Yes, through the chair, that's correct. We've sort of grouped separate portions, 2, 3 and 4 into phase 2, just for brevity, but apologies if there's confusions there.
Oh, into phase 2?
Yes, yeah. So phase 1 is separate proportion 1, phase 2 is separate proportions 2, 3 and 4.
So on page 5 it has phase 1 and phase 2, so yep.
Yeah, I even took it a little bit. Just probably, I understand we have to fix a problem. This is a problem that we have incurred from previous council decisions. And, you know, with Mitre 10 and the development around there, we were able to cater for rainwater. And so it hasn't got anything to do with the climate effect. It is because we have created this disaster by man-made, and it is disappointing that these decisions have been made in previous councils. So, you know, this council is trying to fix something that was done in error previously. So, you know, that just needs to be recorded out there, that these costs that we're having to pass on or incur as a result of bad decisions in previously, because, you know, there was, you know, we didn't have this effect in previous years until we had those developments.
Thank you, Councillor Jovich. Anyone else to make comments? Councillor Harding.
Thank you, te kora matua, mihi atu ki a koe, Councillor Roka, for your karakia, kia mātou. Yeah, I'm really, really pleased where we're heading to with this, and it is a huge project, and back Councillor Reid on his narrative. And there were a few of us that were at that community gathering. Councillor Jovich was there, and Andrew was actually in another role, but he was pulling it all together, and the businesses were hampered hard out. Big business, small businesses up and down Kaka Street. So this is going to be so positive and progressive for all of those residents there and those businesses, and it'll stop the onflow from coming into the city. So great to see this package moving on. Kia ora.
Yeah. Well said there, Councillor Harding, and that's exactly right. Andrew, I know you and your team have done an amazing job to get this together for us. Councillor Reid, I know you've been pushing the team very, very hard as the Chair of Infrastructure, and Councillor Jovich, you've been backing there as the Chair of Finance to make sure these projects can be put forward. So thank you towards those team being there. Andrew, we're now going to take the motion on that. Councillor Reid, you want to have your right to reply?
Just very briefly, if I could, Your Honour, Your Worship. Felt like I was in court. A huge thank you to the water team, led by Andrew, very capably too, I might add, and we look forward to you bringing more projects to us so that we can have a program going forward through the end of June onwards. Thanks, Andrew.
Right to reply has been had. All those in favour? Any opposed? Carried. Well done, Andrew. Our next item is on page 9, which is on 4.2, which is the Maintenance and Renewal Contracts Awards, Contract 24053 North and 24054 South. Councillor Reid, you're moving that, are you?
Yes, Your Worship,
You'd like
thank
to
you.
speak to, would like to read that, please?
I would. Recommendations that the Council, 1, notes that in accordance with a procurement plan, the contracts provide for a total 9-year term made up of 3 separable portions with a formal review every 3 years. 2, notes that a change to the price weighting and non-price attribute weightings in procurement plan was required before the tender was issued. Number 3, approves the amendment to the procurement plan which adjusted the price weighting from 30 to 50% and made changes to non-price attribute weightings. 4, approves the award of contract 24053 in brackets North, road maintenance and renewals to Fulton Hogan Limited for a tendered price of $37,463,983 for the first 3 years, subject to contract terms being agreed by the parties. 5, approves the award of contract 24054 in brackets South, road maintenance and renewals to Ventia Limited for a tendered price of $53,813,489 for the first 3 years, subject to contract terms being agreed by the parties. Number 6, delegates to the Chief Executive authority to negotiate and agree suitable contract terms for each of the contracts.
And Councillor Peters once again has her hand up very quickly there.
I had my line up. It was.
It didn't come up on my screen there, sorry, Councillor Holst. Councillor Peters was quicker at the mark on seconding that. No, it's okay. Yeah, it's okay. You can still speak to it, Councillor Holst.
I withdraw in favour of my more learned comment.
So she's not seconding that. Councillor Holst, are you seconding that? Thank you, Councillor Holst. I need to make sure it's recorded correctly. Councillor Reid, would you like to speak to that, please?
Most certainly, Your Worship. We've come a long way since 2022. We identified there were issues around our contracts. Thankfully, we've managed to put together a fantastic team. 3 of the leaders sitting right there in front of us now. There are others in the background, and I wish they could have all been here, but time waits for no man, and we must deliver on our promises. For the district, this is a huge step forward. We've put a mark on our future, and that is the Roading Done Right manual. We've rewritten it, or these guys have. Tim's not here today, but he is actually our contract man, and he has built up a relationship with these contractors of trust, but he still holds the baton. So we know our way forward will be good. As stated, 3 yearly reviews, and there's also a 3 monthly oversight from our CE and myself, which gives me a personal goal that I need to be back in council again and hold this chair. Just saying. Through you, Your Worship, could I ask the team to take some time of our meeting and lead us through the process that has brought us to where we are today?
Thank you, Councillor Reid. Jim, I'm guessing you're going to lead this one. You're going to talk to the motion, or is it Jeff who's going to do that?
I'll just start very briefly and then hand over to Jeff. And Laura will come in with questions. I won't put her on the spot on this one. So through the chair, we started a process under the direction of our infrastructure chair and deputy chair a couple of years ago to rejuvenate the maintenance contracts. That started with the separable portion 3 of the old contracts, and what we've seen over time is the team really working to build that trust to get better relationships with our community and generally improve things, and you'll see that in the infrastructure committee when you see the graphs and you see how trends have been going upwards. There was a lot of pressure to replace these contracts, so it was made very clear that we were extending the contracts, and there was a bit of a come to Jesus moment around the timeframes and what we needed to do to get there, and there was strong encouragement that we needed to get there. So to be here today is a testament to the team. The way that we've approached the contract, so there have been a number of changes around what we're doing. So taking out the renewals side of the maintenance contracts means that there's more work out there for other contractors. It gives us some flexibility in that space. The inspections come in-house, so again, it's taking more control from a council perspective about what gets done. But as Councillor Reid said, the trust between our teams and the contractors is really strong. And I would just acknowledge the two incumbent contractors for their performance, because they have really lifted things, and albeit one of them, subject to your decision, won't be moving forward in that role, they really have turned things around and made every effort. So I just wanted to thank them. Other than that, Jeff might cover a little bit about the process, but it has been a very accelerated process, but at the same time we got good tenders, which is what we were looking for. We made every effort to open it up to the market as much as possible, and the results that's come through is a really good outcome for council, both in terms of price and quality.
Jeff, have you got something else to add?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. We're really pleased to be able to bring these contracts in front of council for award. This is a potential value of $300 million over the next 3 years, probably the biggest contract that council's ever committed to, or two contracts combined value. We're very pleased to be able to say we're bringing the price from the two lowest submitted tenderers to council. We had a strong preference for quality as well as price in our request for tender, but we've got very good quality tenderers, and both of them are the lowest price tender for each contract submitted. So, and it's within our available budget for council. So it's the best possible outcome that we could have hoped for, and we've got it, and we're very confident that we can work collaboratively with the two contractors named. So we're very pleased. One other thing that was included in the contract, on top of the things that Jim's already raised, is we've introduced a maintenance patrol, a compulsory maintenance patrol team, which means the contractors could provide at least two trucks and crew that continually drive around the network fixing things they find. Under the old contract, we inspected, and then they went home, and then they made up a list of work, and then they might go out and fill a pothole. Now they go out in their patrols, find potholes and fix them immediately, fix signs, fix all the small jobs that we do, and that will very, very much improve our response times for the public, so that the public will see us out on the road fixing things quickly. That was one of the aims of the working party, to get us to do that, and that we're very happy that that's actually come in, and also the contractors have priced that at a reasonable price for us to be able to do that. So I think I'm very, very pleased that we're able to present this in front of council.
Thank you, Jeff. Councillor Benny.
Yeah, just a couple of points of clarification, if I could. There's nothing in here that really touches on performance contracts. So I imagine there is some performance measures in there.
Are you guys able to explain about the performance measures and how they'll be checked over?
Yes, correct. In the contract, there's a number of performance measures that we use to manage this contract. First of all, is what we call a PACE score, which is 3 monthly. 3 monthly, we do an assessment of their performance and advise them. Those PACE scores are held over the life of the contract, and the opportunity for them to renew the contract is based on their previous, or their sum of their PACE scores as they go through. On top of that, on a daily, weekly basis, we measure their performance and let them know against predetermined KPIs how they've performed or where they haven't performed, to give them an opportunity to improve their performance so it can be then included in their PACE scores. So there's a whole system embedded in the contract for performance review to ensure the contractor meets the required standards. Another big change we've made to this contract from the previous contract is really council's taken back the management of the inspection. So simply, we tell them what to do and we pay them for doing what we ask. Whereas previously the contract had more control and say about what he chooses to do in the contract, and for a whole variety of reasons that didn't perform so well for us over the last 8 years. COVID and all sorts of complications added to it. This time round, we've simplified the contract. We control what they do, we tell them what to do, and they get paid for what they do.
Beautiful answer, Jeff, thank you. Following on, it goes on about the post-tender clarification meetings, and the tender tags were discussed and resolved, and removal of the tags. What are these tags?
So,
just briefly, or just...
Yeah, no, so it is common for tenderers when they put their price in, they say, we haven't allowed for this, or we've assumed you meant this, and things like that. What we do for every tender is that we normally go back to the tenderer and say, you either have to remove that tag, so it's not included, or that the value of that tag is priced and added to their contract so that we can compare the different contracts on the same basis, so apples to apples, right? So in this case with Fulton Hogan, they had a few minor tags they put in. We made them price them before their price was open to effective, so that they didn't get a chance to, they didn't know what everybody else's price is, they couldn't play the game. We priced them, we added their price to it, added their price for those tags to their price, so we could fairly compare them to all the other tenderers. And in this case, it was a minor increase in price, but it didn't impact the eventual outcome.
Cool, yeah, you're on fire so far. One more will be my last one. On page 14, the total value of the contract is 91 million, which leaves in my mind 26, just under 26 million, which is anticipated that will be allocated through other external contracts to achieve the required levels of service. Doesn't sound that great. It means that reads to me that if they don't perform, we've got another 26 million to fix their mistakes. I take that's not what that means.
No, that's not correct, Councillor. So the annual budget, and I'll make it nice and simple, the annual budget for council's maintenance activities is about 39 million. The annual price under this contract as tendered is about 30 million, so there's $9 million not allocated. But council has a lot of other contracts that we have to pay that money for: street lights, traffic lights, our bridges, the operation of the moving bridges. So the budget for those other activities is about $400,000 more than we have. So the tender price is about $400,000 in total over the years high. So we've come in very close to budget, and we manage that accordingly. This contract isn't for a fixed price or a fixed activity. It's effectively a list of prices that we choose work from. So council controls it, we choose the work. They've given us their list of prices for the different activities, and we make up the work program based on their prices, and we have to do that within the budget council allocates in a year. So those other 9 million, particularly your question, relates to other contracts that council holds with other contractors. So it won't go through this contract, but will go through our normal contracts.
Cool. Loving the new Jeff Devine, thank you.
Sorry, Your Worship, can I please take this opportunity just to say thank you to the team that did this for us. So it was Laura and Tim, Mike Batchelor, who's been with us for almost as long as I have, a very long time, and Scott Verevis, another one of our consultants working in the background. They put all the effort in to pull this together. And in the probity orders report that's attached to this agenda item, probity order is a lawyer who sits through the process with us to make sure we do everything correctly in terms of contract law and so forth. And there's a comment he's made in his report, and a comment he made to me, that our team is one of the best council teams in terms of managing tenders that he's dealt with across New Zealand. So I think it's really good for our team, who've done an absolutely brilliant job under terrible time pressures, because we did a lot of talking up front and then suddenly forgot we had a lot of work to do. So we had to revise our timetable, working with the councillors as well, who are very much supportive of what we've done. But I think it's really good that our team have done a tremendous job and come up with what is really the best possible option that council could have hoped for from this activity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff, and I think those are well said words. of encouragement of the team, especially hurrying back the progress report. I think that's a great thing to actually highlight on that. So thank you very much. Councillor Jovich.
Just to clarify, the patrols with the signs, you're saying that we've got, is that part of the maintenance contract?
Sorry, Jeff, are you able to answer that one?
You just spoke about the, we've got
So-
3 patrols and they go around fixing the signs.
Yeah, they fix, so, our traffic services budget is split, some within this contract and some without this contract. But yeah, the maintenance control team will do general maintenance of signs. When a sign falls down, they will fix them. And the intention of this contract is they do that immediately rather than, making a list and coming back and ask permission to do the work. So it's about making sure we have a far better response for the public on this.
And these are all the minor jobs. Yeah.
So I understand that is under the provisional items, signage is a day work. So that's not actually part of the maintenance contract. So they're not going around looking at the signs. That has to be a request from yourself.
So the maintenance of signs, is a maintenance activity under this contract. The provision of new signs are normally associated with capital works which are not included in this contract. But the intention of the maintenance patrols is they go out, they find problems and they fix them immediately.
So how come the schedule says that sign maintenance is day works and the renewals is day works also? That's contrary to what you're suggesting.
Let my technical advisor answer that one for you.
Laura Devsich. We've got 2 mechanisms, 2 levers in the contract. Most signage, if it's replacing and fixing, should primarily be done under the maintenance patrol. So that is where it should be happening, but we've given ourselves, we wanted rates so that we had the ability to instruct if it was a specific thing that wasn't going to fall under the maintenance patrol activity. So that just gives us a rate. We aren't necessarily scheduling those works, so it just gives us the ability to pull a different lever if we need to. Yep.
So the contractors can quote an extra day rate for doing something that would have been previously, they could class it as a day work rather than as a maintenance contract, and they wouldn't do it unless they get their rate.
If we only ordered works, so only as per instruction. So those rates are there so that we can get the best rate that we could in a tender box as opposed to have to negotiate it as a variation later, yeah.
It's pretty confusing. Rubbish. Now, understand, do we have, under this contract, under the maintenance, do we have patrols going around actually picking up the rubbish?
No, not under this contract. So it's a different contract from council under the waste department that do the roadside rubbish collection.
Is that has been highlighted many times in here as state of the side of our roads. And I thought that as part of the maintenance contract is that we would have had the lead patrol trucks actually doing this job. So now you're telling us that it's an additional cost on top of this maintenance contract.
Councillor Reid, I'm Councillor Jovich, please
I know, I'm just asking,
get your questions.
I'm needing to clarify that.
So probably the question that needs to be asked, if I'm rephrasing what you're saying there, is, Jeff, when it comes to the contract, when it comes to rubbish collection, is that a separate contract, or is that also going to be included as part of the regular maintenance work?
No, it's not part of the roading maintenance contract or the roading maintenance patrols. The collection of roadside rubbish is done in a separate contract by our waste department. They do, I believe they do the central city cleaning, toilet cleaning and roadside rubbish collection.
Through the chair, we have there is a city centre custodial contract which includes not just the urban centres but general roadside rubbish collection as well.
Okay, Jim, Jeff,
So
thank you for the
just to clarify
clarification.
that, is that, because part of our discussion was that if we've got these guys out, the crews out there on the roads, that they would actually be picking the rubbish up at the same time. but now that's separable to this work. So they'll drive past some rubbish and they won't pick it up.
Okay, so that's, I can see where Councillor Yovich is going with this. If the contractor is out on site and they are fixing up something, will they also be making an effort to keep the roads clean and tidy at the same time?
Your Worship, no, that's not part of the duties included in this contract. Okay.
I think through the chair, part of this approach is we want the maintenance contract to be focused on maintaining the road and the things that need to be maintained. We do have the separate contract that can come up, but the budget relating to rubbish collection is obviously always a challenge. It's not something that's traditionally funded through the subsidy.
Is that something that can be worked on with the contractor so that they are aware of the surroundings, so they're just not leaving rubbish at the same time as being on site? Can that be incorporated in there?
Through you, Your Worship, the contractor will inform council if there are dumpings or rubbish collection. We have included in the contract what we call detritus, so if there's dirt or spillage on the road, then our contractor will clean that up. But in terms of rubbish collection, for example, along Riverside Drive, our current waste contractor has a regular run along that road where he sends a crew out to collect rubbish on a regular basis. And in most of I believe our coastal arterials have a regular run as well. If there's located a site where there is been a dumping of rubbish, then our current waste contractor has a special process to go and deal with those separately. Our contract, and particularly our maintenance patrol contractors, are not geared up to handle the collection of great volumes of rubbish. So it would probably include a significant expense to our activity to ask them to do that while they're doing the roading works.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for the clarification. I think what the councillor is referring to is the way it looks amongst our public when they see a contractor go past and they fix up one thing and they leave something else. I think that's what the Councillor Yovich, is that what you were referring to?
Amongst it all.
Yeah.
But I'll move on.
Yep.
A few other things, a bit confusing. We talk about a collaborative approach. And, I was all in favour of that because we ripped apart NTA and we were after a collaborative approach. But constantly, Your Worship, I've heard here is that we're still in a master-slave relationship. The comments were that we are going to tell the contractors what to do. So that is disappointing to hear in terms of, the importance about building relationships. So that's disappointing to hear. The procurement plan, we opened up to the market, but it was actually disappointing to see the lack of tenderers. We've got a few there that were trying to come into the market, and obviously their costs are a lot higher. So it just shows that under such an approach that it is quite prohibitive to set it up. The provisional items, through the chair, can we be advised, what is the budget or the projected costs of all these items?
This is the provisional items. Now, unfortunately, the elected members do not have these in front of them, so I'm relying on the team here to, if they can know that figure.
Can't hear.
Yeah, sorry. Can someone just drop off their mic? Councillor Peters, can you drop yours off? There we are. There you can go for it. Yep.
Laura said the value is $340,000 per contract. But as Laura said before, what we do is we put items in the contract to get a rate so that in the future, if we want to use that activity, we have a tendered rate to use rather than allowing the contractor to make some up at a later stage. So there's no guarantee of the contractor having the right to have that work, but we endeavour when we put the schedule together to put rates in for everything that we think we might need during the life of the contract, so that the tenderer has to tender it at the beginning at a competitive rate against other tenderers, and we have that rate in the books if we want to use that going forward.
Understand. Councillor Yovich?
Back to the resolution. disappointed about point 3, that didn't come back to us. Item 6, the authority for the CE to negotiate. Now, we've just gone for a whole tender process. Why weren't the terms in that? Can you and why are we having to negotiate and agree suitable contract terms after the event? Now, you've actually got 4 other tender prices in there, so are you bartering off those schedules against the others? And I don't know how that builds in terms of relationships. So that was just a query in terms of point 6. Why are we having to negotiate and agree suitable contract terms when we've just set a tender?
That's a good question to ask, and it's probably one that Jeff can answer quite easily.
Yeah, Your Worship, so in a tender process, once council agrees to award this tender to the contractor, there's a whole series of paperwork and contract forms that we have to sign between the parties. We do not allow the contractor to change his price from this point on, but the various contract terms, the various contract forms that need to be signed, the provision of health and safety plans and other bits and pieces, the contractor has to provide them. They're put in a final contract document. Eventually, the CE signs that on behalf of council as our notification, and that's when the contract becomes active at that point.
Just to remind elected members, the contract itself, what thickness was that, the contract that actually went out? Okay, and the tenders that came in, the thickness of those? So as you can see, councillors, what Laurel's explaining is, you're looking at a 2 ring binders thick as the tender documents, and at least a ring binder thick of coming back in of scheduled pricing. So it is quite a big contract that the staff need to go through and make sure that everything ties up. Councillor Yovich, got any more questions? Or?
Yeah, a couple more, of course. The current contract for the North is around $51 million for 3 years, whereas the new one is $37 million. So how are we expected to have the same standard, which when we got through all our reports was pretty poor, for $14 million less over the 3 years?
The value of the Far North contract includes all the additional works that council has put through the contract over the 3-year period, and in this case particularly the flood damage work. So we do not budget for flood damage work as part of council's budget or as part of this contract, but the value of flood damage in the Far North over the years is added to the amount of money we pay the contractor to do the work. So the other point that Laura's just advised me, we've also taken rehabs out of this contract. So we've taken the rehabs as a given right to this contractor, and they will be put out to the open market. So a combination of those things make the price. The engineer's estimate and the contract price were very close. So the contractor has priced it very closely to what we believe he would be pricing it in terms of the current market.
Just a little bit confused because I thought the current contract was $17 million a year. So now we're at $13 million worth. So, and coming back to the rehabs, the current values don't allow for the rehabs and the items. So, what's the estimated cost on rehabs?
Our rehab budget currently sitting at about $6 million a year across the both contracts.
Which will be tendered out at requirements. Yeah.
But that was all part of the previous contract.
So now
correct. It's been swept out. Yeah. So, with the South contract, we were running at 54 million. It's now 54 million under this, and we've stripped stuff out. So it's actually costing us a lot more for less. So that is concerning. Just in the procurement plan, always stated it, Councillor Reid and Councillor Hull should have been at the top of the table on this, and more councillors should have been involved. And in regards to the probity lawyer, Annette, I see that he was used with the previous NTA setup, and the conflicts of interest, we were very silent on that, and I see with the attributes and how it has worked through, but we've got people that were on that panel, they're actually working for the likes of Ventia and everything, so I think it's very concerning. In summary, I will not be recommending this.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Yovich. Councillor Reid, you got a question or?
I have a clarification. There's a typo on page 14.
Thank you for bringing that up, councillor. It's a very good point. It is it's a small typo. It does not make any difference to the actual value.
It's just a simple typo. It reads in brackets on the second line,
Yep.
or 30,309,157 per year. In actual fact, that should be $30,425,824 per year.
And as if councillors actually knows what that is that that's the 91,277,472 divided by 3. So it was a slight topographical error, and thank you for pointing that out, councillor Reid. Councillor Hulse.
Okay, so I want to come out and just say first off, actually, I think we've got in front of us a really, really good decision to be voting on and to support. So wind the clock back, at the start of this term, we had a new chair of infrastructure and I was his deputy, and we set about trying to get some local input into this tender. So we went out and we talked to contractors, we drove just about all the roads in Whangarei District, we inspected culverts, and then we came back and we talked to our staff. And at that time, obviously, we were the part of NTA, and we were pretty sure that we could get the same results by doing it in-house. So, long story short, we then came back and issued and had the support of the councillors around the table to actually issue a one-year contract to allow development of these long-term contracts. And that is supported, and I think that is a good learning curve for council and for our contractors. The contractors knew these big tenders were coming. They had 12 months to prepare themselves for it, and we had good dialogue with the contractors through our management and through our councillors. So there's no surprises to the major contractors, these are coming. So these are basically a 9-year contract, a 3 plus 3 plus 3. Today we're awarding the first 3 years contract value. The point was why the 9-year contract and why we wanted the 1 year start off and then 9 years. It fits perfectly with our long-term plan. So it expires just before our next long-term plan. And so we've got plenty of time leading into our long-term plan to add any new initiatives or anything else we would like to do. Okay, so the budget, as our manager said, Jeff has said, they're very, very pleased. You can see the smile on his face. It's actually very close to the budget. We've got it, and it's good to see the staff really motivated on this. And we've had a few catch-up meetings, and we've had a working party working through, trying to make sure the scope we were initially offered and talked about was that being followed through the tender process. And we're very pleased because we actually had our CE on that working group as well, and we followed a really, really clear line. And we did put staff under pressure. There's no doubt about that to deliver. And but you know, we've got a couple of younger members in that crew now. We've got Tim Ward and Laura here, who's part of the panel, and you know, it'd be good to get a few more comments from Laura. We're going to invite that over time, and because she knows the stuff, and she actually, it's really, really cool to have a couple of younger people coming through, learning this and taking a leadership. And that's what we try to do. We want to have invigorated staff. We want to have a contractor who knew this was coming. There's no surprises for them, so they had plenty of time to put in competitive tenders, and now we're getting the results of that. So overall, I think we're in a very good space, but we said we wanted to make improvements. We indicated to fellow councillors this is what we're driving for. And I think you can just look at the reaction around the room today. I think we're actually delivering on what we proposed. So thank you very much.
Thank you,
A special thanks for our evaluation team. Laura, Tim, Jeff, well done. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Councillor Peters.
Thank you. Thank you for all of your work, councillors and workers. It sounds like it was a real good thing. I have a question. What's the differential between the pay in a rubbish contract and the person who's fixing the road?
Oh, that's a very good question. I don't know if that's something the team could actually answer straight away. However, I will pose it to Jeff. He may be able to answer that one straight. No, I didn't think he could.
Through the chair, I'm not sure I can answer it. I know we have some contractors who are using paying living wage and others who are using minimum wage. But I can't give you a direct answer. I'll go away and we'll come back at the infrastructure committee.
You happy with that, councillor?
Yes, I am. I come from the assumption that someone who fixes the road actually needs a higher level of expertise.
And fair comment to that. The team, just for those who are online, were actually nodding in agreements with that. So thank you, Councillor.
And that was in relation to combining the contracts.
Yep, understand. Councillor Cooper.
Thank you, Your Worship. A question for Jeff, if I may.
Yep, what's the question?
The question is, Jeff, that as elected members we often get questions and receive frustration from the public about the amount of road cones that is being used. And I wondered if in these contracts there is any good news that we can share with our elected members around that topic.
That's a very good question for Jeff to answer. Jeff, are you able to answer the ultimate cone question?
Thank you for endorsing my question, Your Worship.
I'll do my best, Your Worship. So, recently the government have introduced a new standard for the use of cones on roadworks, the New Zealand Guide to Temporary Traffic Management. Council has adopted that guide as our standard working practice, so we now all require all our contractors and in fact everybody working on the roads for council to comply with that new guide. Put simply, the old guide was a standard rule book and you had to comply with the rule book almost irrespective of what work you were doing. The new guide requires you to do a risk assessment of your site and then put out appropriate traffic management for what you're doing. So we have had a situation in the past where we've had state highway level traffic management on our backcountry roads and way too many cones and way too many patrol trucks so now, and then our staff, so our corridor access team, Gordon White and Dean Mitchell, are out there with our contracting community, training them in the use of the new guide and getting them to put appropriate traffic management on their site. So our contractors here have been requested to work in compliance with the new guide, and all the works they do, they have to apply for traffic, for cars, corridor access requests, and we will be encouraging them to work in accordance with the new guide. However, under the legislation, it is actually the contractor's responsibility to provide traffic management to meet their health and safety requirements, and although council can encourage and work with them, as we are doing, the final say is with is the contractor's responsibility. So there's a lot of work being done, and Jim's working in the Contractors Federation as well to train up the contractors and get them to adopt the new guide entirely across our region.
Just to add to
Jim?
Just to add to that response, two things. One is we are starting to see that what we've had is a lot of support from our councillors around closing roads. So rather than having traffic management on long sections, particularly we've seen a few things around Bream Bay and such, where we close the whole road off, get the whole job done, and then there's less cones, the workers are safer, we get the work done quicker. So that's already starting to come into practice. The other thing that the government's asked now is Jeff has to provide a report every quarter on how much we are spending on traffic management as part of all our contracts. So there's actually a metric there as well that will be available.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Just to comment on those answers. Firstly, Jeff's answer, I think, gives me something that I can put a positive spin on, I hope, as we report back to the public. Jim's answer, while I understand the theory behind shutting the road while they work to have less traffic management, it becomes, it only sort of works if they are then efficiently working on the road. So what will frustrate people is if they see a road closed and no one doing anything. So I just put that out there. Thank you.
And good highlights to that. I just want to touch on one thing there, what you did raise. Jeff, Jim, within this contract, is our council paying per cone or paying a flat fee for traffic management?
Through you, Your Worship, the cost of traffic management for our maintenance activities included in the rate provided by the contractor, and that rate was competitively tendered amongst all the tenderers, so therefore, and we talked to the contractors through the tender period, encouraging them to work using the new guide. So theoretically, they have priced for less cones on the road, and we will be encouraging them to do that every time they do works for us.
Thank you. Now, I actually had Councillor Holmes, but you've taken your microphone off, have you? Okay, Councillor Harding.
Thank you, Te Koromata, and mihi ana kia koutou to the team. Huge amount of work, and I just wanted to kind of focus in on, and I know that we'd passed that resolution back in December, but it's more around the procurement, the procurement process, and obviously I've always had a strong interest around. Yes, you've got your main your main contractor. They're probably subcontractors off of that, and whether there's that ability to attract a lot of the Māori and Pacifica businesses, within Whangarei, within Northland, and whether we could add those kind of principles of social and sustainable practices of procurement that helps with the supplier diversity. So I just wanted, if there was, I know Fulton Hogan has strong numbers, but in terms of those subcontractors, because we want to lift the business capability, the smaller businesses that, help feed all of our other families and other growing businesses within Taitokerau.
So good question for Jeff to answer about allowing our subcontractors and making sure we get our Pacific and Māori community involved. Is there a high part of that?
Yep. Through your worship, the contract had a requirement similar to our last one that the contractor has to be able to show that he's subcontracting out more than 30% of the value of the contract to external parties. In practice, last year it was more 40 to 50% what they achieved, and there are no requirements that Pacific or Maori particular firms have to be included. But I think my experience in Northland is that the majority of our roading workforce in most of these big companies is actually Maori and Pacifica anyway. So we have a lot of those people in our industry being trained. They're good jobs. They're generally well-paid jobs, but at this stage, we haven't made that specific requirement for within this current contract.
What I would add to that is because our procurement policy does direct us down that route, but I think what we've found is that those main contractors, their business model pushes them down that route as well. So having worked with Fulton Hogan and Laura actually on projects around the traps, they've lent strongly into that social procurement and helping subcontractors to build up their capability so that they can then bid for the work. So part of that trust model, and as Jeff said, the conversations with the Civil Contractors Federation is about how do we help those businesses to grow in different areas, whether it be, I know historically there's been traffic management companies set up, but we've also saw that over the last few years with Hauraki contracting and other places that were brought on as subcontractors, and that's how they started to build that strength in that business.
Thanks, and I feel strongly about Fulton Hogan, but what about Ventia?
Ventia are the same. They are based on the McBreen Jenkins firm, been in Northland for many years, I think maybe longer than I've been here. And so they have been brought out by Ventia now, and they're same. They're all local people, local workers. I suspect, without knowing exact details, high percentage of Maori and Polynesian staff working for them as well.
Yeah, and I acknowledge that employees would be a good percentage. I guess my focus is on those businesses, those subcontracting businesses. Yeah.
I think what Councillor Harding, if I'm correct, if you have a right here, Councillor, you're talking about upskilling of future businesses within Whangarei.
I'm aware that there's actually quite a lot of Māori and Pacifica businesses, and they're finding it hard to get work.
Okay.
And I feel that they should have a stronger weighting with these bigger contractors to get that work.
And I think that's something that the team can probably take offline and come back to us with a better answer to that one. So thank you very much for raising the question. Good question there, Alice. Councillor Connor.
Thank you. Not wanting to draw this out too much longer, I'll just try and keep my comments brief. Just want to touch on Councillor Jovich's points about the rubbish, and whilst I appreciate and support that in a manner of sense, to hear the fact that there's going to be a roving team going out looking at the potholes and maintenance of signs and whatnot, the volume of rubbish that would be out there that they would have to deal with if they were dealing with that as well would outweigh to actually be able to deal with those things. Whilst I would support having a better way forward for our waste people actually doing the similar thing, for what it is, I hope they're scanning Facebook for the complaints that's happening out there so that they can get to it quick smart too.
Comments been had. Councillor Reid, would you like your right of reply?
I would, Your Worship. Thank you so much. I note all the comments, both for and against. It's been quite a journey, and I probably owe a huge vote of thanks to my deputy, our finance chair, the finance team, one of which is behind us, for making this all possible and giving us...
Point of order. I wasn't involved.
Point of order, okay. Councillor Jovich, I believe Councillor Reid is giving you a pat on the back and your team a pat on the back.
I'm actually voting against this because we're setting up future councils for a massive cost.
Councillor, your objection has already been noted.
Thank you.
And your point of order has been noted as well. Councillor Reid is actually basically making a compliment to your team.
Can you withdraw the compliment?
I will.
He's withdrawn the
Gladly.
compliment.
Councillor
Reid, would you like to keep going, please?
And most of all, a massive thank you to the team that I've put under a hell of a lot of pressure in the last 12 months. They've really responded to the challenge, and it's been a pleasure working with you. Thank you.
Okay. Right of reply has been had. All those in favour? Any opposed? Would you like it to acknowledge Councillor Jovich? Okay. It's been carried. Thank you, councillors. Appreciate the time and energy and discussions that you've had over these two topics. While I will just point out this is a significant amount of money and a significant amount of work that's gone into this. I appreciate the time and energy that each one of you have actually played right at this present moment to get these contracts through so that we can keep our contractors employed and getting work done in a timely manner. So thank you very much for that, councillors. We will now close our meeting. We've got a workshop at 10:30, so you've got half an hour. Thank you very much, councillors, for your time. 10:30. Been brought through... Sorry?
We're trying, the staff are available, external counsel, we're just trying to get hold of external counsel to bring it forward from 11:30 to 10.
Oh, okay, so we may not do that.
Trying to get hold of
Okay. So we'll keep you posted about the next meeting. Thank you very much, councillors. We're in the process of doing that. We'll see what happens.